All right, Jim, getting back to the phone lines here. We're going to go to line 3 now and talk to Jason. Jason, good evening. Thank you for the call. What can we help you with?
Well, my wife was involved in a car accident a couple of months ago, and she is now working with the insurance company to settle out of court. And I'm trying to figure out whether or not the settlement that they're offering is fair and how we should go about evaluating that settlement. What are the elements we should consider? The offer right now seems a little low, and we're trying to determine whether or not to seek legal advice.
All right, Jason, Billy, a lot of independent folks trying to get it done here.
A lot of attorneys.
A lot of on that side. And I get it. You know, you think to yourself, hey, maybe I can handle this. And then, but Jim, he got right to it. What is a fair settlement? That is a great question, but hard answer, huh?
It's very hard to answer, especially on that kind of limited information. So let me just kind of tell you the process that attorneys go through. So we look at a claim. There are individual cases. You know, we hear people all the time say, well, my cousin or my brother had this case and it was similar and he got this amount. Why can't I get that? And every case is different. The first thing we look at is liability. Is it clear that somebody else is at fault, not the person who we're talking to about representing that person? Or it may be an allocation of fault. Both may be at fault, in which case you can still recover. Just reduces the amount. And so then the second thing is your damages. And so I touched on this earlier, but in Mississippi, you're entitled to recover all of your past medical expenses, all of your future medical expenses, all of your past loss of earnings, all of your future loss of earnings, pain and suffering, mental anguish, emotional distress, disfigurement, loss of enjoyment of your life, things you couldn't do before. Those are all elements you can recover for. Somewhat simple are the medical expenses and the lost wages, because you can just calculate those up and add them up. What's more ambiguous and harder to put a finger on is the other things, what we call non-economic damages. How much should you get for the inconvenience or pain and suffering? Those amounts can vary widely, and it's going to basically take an attorney who's familiar with the area where you could bring this claim to tell you what's a fair settlement in that venue. All we do as attorneys really is part art, part science, maybe a little more art, is you know, we have experience in these courts, and we know likely what a jury is to do based on what they've done in similar cases in the past, and then we project that out and say, well, this is what the case is probably worth, something in this range. And so I would, again, I sound like I'm advocating for everybody to call an attorney. You're calling an attorney at LawCall who tells you to call an attorney, but you really need some more specific advice from an attorney before you settle this case, because you probably have realistically no idea what the case is worth at this point on your own. At least call an attorney, give them the basic facts. He can give you some idea, and I'll do it, as to what I think is fair and whether I think, look, you're messing up, you need to hire me or somebody else right away. We'll tell you that. Okay.
Jim, I want to touch on something you said just a second ago. Hold on to that email question, Maddie. Hold on to Maddie's email question. You mentioned just a moment ago that the venue, it really has a huge effect on.
There's no question.
I mean, it's just, it changes across the entire WLX viewing area, right?
Across the whole state and any parts of the country, because as you've seen, you know, you've heard a lot about venue in the recent case involving former President Trump, right?
I did, yes.
A little bit about that.
I did hear something about that on
So
the news.
the venue matters, where you're at and who is on the jury. Everybody that's on a jury brings their own experiences to the jury. And so jurors of different demographics, of different age groups, will view the same case in drastically different ways. And so the same case, for instance, in downtown New Orleans, may be worth a lot more than it would be in downtown Gulfport or somewhere else. And so again, if you're not an attorney, and if you're not an attorney who's actually experienced in handling these kinds of cases, you really don't know.
You could get washed up and all that
quickly.
very quickly.
You could settle your case for less, and sometimes far less than you think it's worth.
How about that? I mean, same people, same accents, different results.
And one other thing I want to make sure people understand this too. A lot of times they don't get this. So you got to be very careful if you're trying to settle a significant case with significant medical expenses on your own, because while you receive the medical care, your own health insurance is probably paying for it. People don't realize, I see them getting this bind all the time, that when you settle your case, that insurance company has the right to get the money back that they paid for your health care from you.
They did it to me, Jill.
Yeah, and if you're not an attorney and don't understand that, you'll settle a case, have to turn around and give all the money back to the health insurance provider who paid for your coverage.
Look, from my own personal experience, you kind of quarterback these things a little bit along the way. I did get a settlement, and then all of a sudden, I get a letter from my insurance company saying, "Oh yeah, by all the way the money that you got for your health insurance, hey, we need you
to back."
Yeah, we need it. And I'm like, what?
that's what
I almost didn't mail it. I called Jim. I was like, am I being scammed?
Now, usually, if you've got an attorney who's handled these kinds of cases, what we typically do then, we're able to negotiate that figure down before you settle the third-party claim and say, well, look, we can pay you, a half, a third, whatever it may warrant, and get that figure down. But they are absolutely entitled to receive that money back.
After you explained it, I got it.
If there's somebody else who's at fault that caused the loss that they paid for.
See, that's the reason you got to have Matt and Jim on your cell phone or watch on Saturday nights, because they're here for you. I mean, it was like a LawCall question. I just called Jim one.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people, we had a lot of people calling tonight handling things on their own. That's something that I've seen a lot of people mess up on. They'll do this. Okay, well, I've got this money, and then they get a letter from their own insurance company and say, pay up. And they say, well, wait a minute, I didn't get enough money then. And the company that they settled with says, well, you signed a release. Yeah, it's done. And
I was one big Walmart runner away from being in trouble here on the bank account. And well, look, I got Matt and Jim, just like you do here every Saturday night.